increasing around the world. And as India diversifies its economy and marches towards a $5 trillion economy milestone, technology and online learning is going to play a vital role in bridging the rural-urban divide and building a large and thriving and skilled workforce. Today, we will announce several groundbreaking innovations and initiatives that will vastly expand access to world-class education and also increase and equip youth of the country with digital and AI skills. And in fact, today's announcements are ideal in many ways because just yesterday, India celebrated the International Hindi Day. So it's kind of topical in many ways. We have a packed agenda led by our global CEO, Jeff Manchin-Calder. He's also joined by our APAC leader, Raghav Gupta, and many of our E-staff leaders from around the world as well.
Investors Global Summit. And every time I come back, it's like it's a different country. The world is changing very rapidly, but nowhere so quickly as in India. And what I will talk about and what I'll show you is a set of innovations that Coursera is taking in order to harness the power of technology to make education and opportunity more equally accessible to people around the world. And a major part of this is language accessibility. India, you'll see in these slides, is the most promising country in the world when it comes to human talent and human opportunity. There's no doubt about it. Everybody agrees. But a lot of what it's going to take to unlock that kind of opportunity is access. That means affordability, it means accessibility, device accessibility, language accessibility. And even though AI is going to have, in many ways, certain negative impacts that could threaten to widen the digital divide, what we're trying to do at Coursera is to use technology to narrow the digital divide. And I'll show you how we're doing that with real products, not just demos. And I'll show you the relevance of this technology, the opportunity that sits in front of India today. So let me get started. I love my job. I love my job because I get to try to serve the world through learning. These are the countries I've been to in the last 16 months. Every government, every business, every university is absolutely captivated by the need and the opportunity to transform education in order to help their citizens take advantage of global opportunities. You know, change creates both opportunity and threat. And whether the change becomes an opportunity or the change becomes a threat largely comes down to education. What do we make of that change? And when I look at how the world is changing, and these are the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, change creates opportunity and change creates threats. There's a vision crafted by many countries as to what we want the world to look like and how we might get there through these Sustainable Development Goals. But one of these goals for me is far more important than the others, and that's education. And nowhere better than in India is there a recognition of the path that education plays in addressing inequalities, in addressing ocean, water, and clean sanitation, in creating decent work and economic growth, in creating peaceful, just, and strong institutions, in helping to eliminate poverty, and helping to improve health and protect our climate. Education is the path to creating a better world for society. Now, technology is having a major impact on this, and it creates opportunities and it creates threats. This is a chart that I like to show from Oxford University that looks at the impact on jobs, the potential automation of jobs, based on the nature of the job and the level of education of the person. On the x-axis is the risk that a job gets automated. On the y-axis is the typical annual income of people who hold that job. The size of the bubble is the number of people who hold the job. This is in the US, but it's fairly reflective of other countries as well. And then the color of the bubble is the typical education level of people who hold the job. Red are people with no formal education. The blue bubbles are people with college degrees. Now what you can see clearly are these big red bubbles in the lower right. These are people making very low wages in jobs like waiters, freight mover, personal care aides, cashiers, retail sales, truck drivers. Their jobs are very predictable and repeatable, and therefore very subject to being automated by technology. And these people have no formal education. On the other hand, you've got these blue balls, people making a lot of money with college degrees. They are the knowledge workers that historically have not been very at risk for having their jobs be automated. These are general managers, financial managers, lawyers, IT managers, specialized software engineers, business operations specialists. And what most countries are focused on is understanding how do we create pathways and opportunities for people who have had no access to education to get educated with the knowledge and the skills and the credentials to get these better jobs that are being made available because of education. Now, in January of 2023, I updated this slide because ChatGPT came. And what ChatGPT is doing, it's not just ChatGPT, it's generative AI more broadly. It has now the ability to automate and approximate many of the cognitive tasks that we perform. And so now many more people's jobs and many of the tasks associated with those jobs are more likely to be automated. So many of these jobs that were not very vulnerable to automation are going to become much more vulnerable to automation. Now, there was a study that was done by OpenAI at University of Pennsylvania. They found that about half of all workers can have half of their tasks exposed to generative AI. So the threat of automation has broadened, and higher wage jobs, they found, are more associated with being impacted by GPT-4. This was GPT-4 when they did the study. Another way to look at this is from some work that was done by the OECD. In 2016, they looked at the state of AI at the time. And they said, who is most likely going to have their jobs be impacted by AI that existed in 2016? This was before generative AI. And guess what? The most at risk were people with no formal education. The least at risk were people with master's degrees and PhDs. That's the conventional wisdom. But fast forward, and now with GPT and generative AI, and what you can see is the exposure to generative AI reshuffles the whole game here. Now the people most exposed, who have jobs that are most exposed to GPT-4, are people with college degrees. And the people least exposed are the ones doing the manual jobs that don't have as many cognitive processes involved with data, decision making, information management. So at a high level now, globally, we're all in the same boat. It's not just people who've had no formal education whose jobs are threatened by automation. It's also people who have college degrees. And what this means is that everybody is going to have to learn and change and grow their careers, and that means everyone's going to need access to education. No matter where you live, no matter what job you're in, no matter what language you speak. The World Economic Forum estimates that part of the impact of this is that a lot of people are going to have to get new skills to do new jobs. They estimate that 22% of jobs in India will likely change because of this. And McKinsey did a study that really looks at the economic opportunity that could be unlocked as people harness the power of generative AI. So there's a question, how fast will this go? Will people harness generative AI quickly, or will it be more of a slow burn? I would say that's going to move very quickly for a number of reasons. One of them is that there's a huge economic gain to those companies that move quickly. And according to this McKinsey study, they expect over $4 trillion of economic efficiency to be created. And the majority of that is going to be in customer operations, software engineering, product R&D, sales, and marketing. This chart basically shows the percentage of job tasks that are automated, and then the number of dollars and people in those jobs. So even though sales and marketing doesn't have a lot of automation that's going to happen, there's a lot of money being spent there. So even for modest improvements in productivity, it produces major economic gains. But if you want to see, in my opinion, which jobs will embrace generative AI the fastest, it's these jobs. Why? Because the CFOs and the CEOs and other executives are going to say there's a big opportunity to improve productivity in these jobs with this new technology. Access Partnership and FICCI, they did a study. They suggest that over $500 billion of productivity gains may be available to the Indian economy because of generative AI. All right, this is another chart. This is pretty recent, and I think it's fascinating. What is really the impact when a knowledge worker uses generative AI? Well, BCG partnered with Harvard Business School, and this was just published in the Harvard Business Review recently. And they got 758 management consultants, so these are knowledge workers, college degrees, they're doing strategy work, and they had a bunch of tasks that they wanted them to perform. And first they did the tasks without GPT-4. And they looked at people's performance, and they said, all right, here's the performance, the histogram of the performance, high performance, low performance. Here's the average without GPT-4. This is the light colored bars are just the people who did below average on that test. The darker bars are people who did above average on this test. Then they gave them GPT-4, and they gave them a new set of tasks, and this is what the distribution looked like. The first thing that you notice is a huge improvement in average performance where the average is shifted up. So big gain. The second thing you notice is that the distribution of performance tightened rather than widened. And the final thing that you notice, and this is the point I think is really relevant for India, and I've not heard anybody talk about this, and I might be wrong, but this is my conclusion, or at least my hypothesis here. These green colored bars, these are the people that were traditionally lower performers without this technology, and the darker bars, everybody got better. But those lighter bars got much more of a boost than the higher performers. Now look, about equal numbers of the lower performers and the higher, it equalized the performance between the lower performers and the higher performers. So if you have an economy of younger people with less experience in the job market, and they have access to generative AI, you also have people who have more experience in the job market, everybody will benefit, but the people just starting off will benefit more, and it will equalize the performance capabilities. And so I expect that globally, the average young Indian knowledge worker with GPT is going to catch up faster to others with more experience in the workforce because of this technology. And it's going to create, I believe, incredible global opportunities for Indian knowledge workers to work on a global basis. Now, is everybody going to adopt this? I think they're going to adopt it very quickly. Here's why. If you were an above average performer without GPT, and you're like, hey, I'm an above average performer, I don't need this technology, and everybody else uses it, you're not an above average performer anymore. In fact, you're at the bottom of the curve if you choose not to use this. You might not like it, you might not want it, but if you don't use it and your peers do, they will outperform you. And it's not going to take a long time for people to figure out. It's like not using Google. It's like not using a spreadsheet. You must use these thinking tools, and you have to figure out how to use them wisely. I just published a course 2 days ago that goes all through how to use generative AI as a thought partner and the risks and the ethical considerations that go along with it, and there are many. But this is a thinking tool that people will need to be using and using pretty quickly. Oh, one other thing I want to just say, here's a quote from the COO of IBM. He says, AI might not replace managers, but managers using AI will certainly replace managers who are not using AI. We also just looked at a PwC survey that came out like in the last month. When they surveyed perceptions of AI of individuals around the world, India stood out. The individual respondents in India, 50% of them believe that AI will help them be more productive with the right skilling compared to the global average of 30%. So Indians seem disproportionately poised to see the opportunity and take the advantage of the opportunity of this technology. But you also have to look at this though, with the right skilling. In that survey that I showed you from Harvard Business Review, using generative AI today to solve the wrong kind of problem, or the problem that technology is not capable of solving, reduces the performance of the people. So right now, you really have to know what are the limits of that capability of the technology so that you can use it the right way. Now, is this going to be relevant to jobs in India? Looks like it. Some of the highest demand jobs in India are digital jobs associated with transformations of companies. And if you look at which jobs can be done remotely, it's those digital jobs in high demand where you can learn the skills online that you can also do remotely. Why does this matter? Because anyone in India can learn the skills to do a certain kind of job, a digital job, without leaving their community. And increasingly, they can get access to digital jobs all around India and also all around the world without leaving their community. People will not have to go to the big cities to get the kinds of economic opportunities that traditionally were available only in the big cities. And you'll see that in some slides when we show you the kinds of learners who are learning on Coursera. So this is AWS, so it's an AWS Gallup survey. Indian workers with digital skills earn about 2 times those who do not. 88% of Indian employers struggle to hire employees with digital skills. So clearly there is a demand, and there is a recognition of that demand by higher compensation for digital skills in India. So, remote work. A lot of people thought that after the pandemic, everyone's going to go back to the office. Well, definitely there are a lot of CEOs saying you got to come back to the office. But when you look at the workers, they're saying, I don't want to go back to the office if I have to drive 2 hours each direction in Bangalore in order to get to the office. I'm far more productive working in my home. So the light blue bar is the amount of remote work, the number of remote workers in 2020. And you can see the US at 4 million, India at 1.7 million. The dark blue is the number of remote workers in 2023. So the US still is larger number of remote workers, but India has grown 170% and is catching up to the US from 1.7 million to 4.6 million. And I think it's going to keep on growing and be the remote worker country of the world. I mean, Indian knowledge workers will be doing knowledge jobs for countries global. Now, if that's sort of a landscape of jobs and AI, of opportunities and threats, how do we create the education and the access to education that actually makes these opportunities available? Let's talk a little bit about Coursera and what we're doing to help here. First of all, we were started, as you probably know, in 2012 by 2 Stanford professors. They put up some courses in machine learning and lots of people came and take them. It was B2C. Today we have 136 million learners on Coursera. We work with universities and industry partners. And I'll go through, what about our Indian learners? How many, who are they? What about our Indian university partners, our industry partners? We'll go through that in just a second. But today we work with 300 educator partners, and we also serve institutions. We work with businesses to upskill their employees. We work with governments to upskill their citizens. We work with universities to provide curricula that they can integrate into their college degree programs, whether that's NMIMS or whether that's IIM Ahmedabad. Now, when we talk about how we make this work at Coursera, we talk a lot about pathways. Pathways to learning and pathways to opportunities. So on Coursera, you can come in through the consumer channel, you can be an employee, there's lots of different ways you can get to Coursera, but when you get to Coursera, you see all this high quality content and credentials from leading businesses and leading universities. And this open content, you can start at any time, very affordably, and it gives you a pathway to a college degree and a pathway to a job. And so we'll talk a little bit more about how this works and what are the certificates here, but creating pathways of opportunity is what our model is all about. Now, AI is really changing the game. And to give you a little bit of an idea of where we're heading at Coursera in terms of using AI to create opportunities for education and opportunities for jobs, I want to hit on 5 particular areas of focus. First of all, AI is going to disrupt jobs. It's going to require upskilling and reskilling. On the upskilling side, we just announced Generative AI Academy. This was in December. This is basically a whole set of training courses and content, curriculum, to help employees in a company learn generative AI, to harness the power of this technology, and unlock the productivity and the innovation for customer value that many C-suite executives are really looking for. So there are 3 pillars. There's generative AI for everyone, generative AI for execs, and generative AI for teams. We've launched everyone. We just launched generative AI for executives. I just launched a course called Navigating Generative AI, a CEO playbook, to help CEOs figure out how to set strategy and how to transform your company to harness this technology. And then another thing that we're doing is we're setting up, well, we have set up what we call the Career Academy. These are job training programs so that someone wants to start a new career or switch careers because either generative AI has created new job opportunities or has impacted their existing opportunities. They need to reskill and redeploy for a new career. That's what Career Academy is, and I'll show you what some of the certificates are, the professional certificates in Career Academy. Now, not only will AI change the job landscape and the skills people need to learn, it will also change the way that we teach, and it will change the way that we learn. And of course, that's what we do. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about is using AI to make teaching and learning more effective. One, and I'll show you this, a live demo, is called Coach. This is a personalized tutor that is available every time you're in a Coursera course, every single course, that will give you answers to questions and help you talk through and understand the material. It will also help you with your career choices. It will also help you find the kinds of content that's most relevant to your situation. The second major initiative is called Course Builder. And this is a tool that allows our customers, our business customers and our university customers, to mix and match international experts from all around the world, basically take pieces of courses on Coursera to build a new course that's custom tailored to their employees or to their students. That's why we call it Course Builder. You're building a course by recombining elements of other courses using Generative AI. And then the third, and this is just near and dear to my heart, and this is the major announcement that we're making today, is that AI is completely changing the game with language accessibility. So 6,000 courses on Coursera, the majority of them have been authored in English, which means if you don't speak English, historically, you've not had access to this education. But AI has dramatically changed the economics and the possibilities of being able to translate a course from one language into a number of other languages. And we'll talk a lot more about what this means for learners in India who speak Hindi. All right, let's zoom in and briefly talk about learners in India. What do they look like? Why are they coming to Coursera? What courses are they taking? First of all, about 22 million learners in India have registered to learn on Coursera. It's growing more quickly than almost any other country in the world. It's about to surpass all of Europe in the number of learners in India. You can see the US is at 26 million, India is at 22 million. And when you look at who these learners are, they're younger than the global average, 29 years, median age versus 32 globally. There's more tilt towards men than women in India compared to globally. It's closer to 50-50. And not surprisingly, there's more learners learning on mobile devices in India. And this is another really important thing. When you learn on a mobile device, not only does it give you better access, but you can watch these courses even when you don't have access to the internet. You can watch these courses even when you don't have access to power. Internet is not always available. Power is not always available. Mobile devices are a great way to create continuous access to learning on Coursera for learners who might not have continuous connectivity and power. Clearly, the pandemic made a huge impact on the number of learners coming to Coursera. You can see in 2020 a massive jump, and that's really just continued to go. So this is number of registered learners and number of course enrollments every year up through 2023. And when you look at the number of learners and enrollments since the pandemic, India is the #1 country in the world. Since the pandemic, 18.6 million new learners in India have registered on Coursera. The #2 country is the US at 17 million. When you look at course enrollments, it's even more dramatic. Almost 50 million course enrollments in India since the pandemic started. Only 32 million in the US, #2. Almost twice as many course enrollments in India as the US, which is #2, since the pandemic. Where are these learners? Well, they're in the major areas for sure. For 4 of these states, if it were a country, it would rank in the top 10 among learners on Coursera. So clearly this is a huge opportunity for us, and we see a lot of enthusiasm for learning on Coursera among learners in India. And especially when you look at where it's growing the fastest in India, it's growing the fastest in the more remote areas of India. And I would suggest that one of the major challenges with creating more access has been language. And that's why we're excited to announce these language learning translations. So, what courses are people in India taking? Well, they're taking very practical courses from the best, most expert brands and instructors in the world. So you can see Google Market, Stanford Machine Learning. You can see a broad array of global expert teachers on subjects that create a lot of economic and job opportunity for individuals. Now, let's talk a little bit about translations. It used to cost us $10,000 to translate one course into one language. With AI, it costs about $20. What that means is we've been able to translate almost every course into 18 different languages. Here are the languages we've done so far, and I'm really excited to now announce and to show you the accessibility that's now available for learners in India who speak Hindi to take courses on. All right, so let me show you a demo. These are always dangerous, so bear with me. Whoops. Okay. I mentioned that I recently have launched a course. So this is the course. It's called Navigating Generative AI, a CEO Playbook. It's a standard course. It has videos, it has hands-on labs, it has assessment questions, etc. The first thing I want you to notice is this thing called Coach. Coach is the ability to use GPT in order to have a personal assistant in the course. It's available on the course pages. If I go to a video, it's available in the video so that I can ask questions. And right down here, you can also see that Coach is available at any time. This is essentially ChatGPT for the course. So if I watch this course, and here's the introduction to the course, and you can see a standard kind of video here. I'll go to where I introduce some of the guest lectures. I have a lot of guest lectures here helping me.
Well, I can't. Like I said, it's a team effort. And we're very fortunate in this course to have some of the best experts in the world helping to teach the course with me. These experts are the tops in their fields, and throughout the course, they will share their thoughts specifically on how CEOs and leaders should be approaching generative AI.
What are the risks to me? It can personalize the answer, so it's almost as if the learner is talking to the expert instructor and it's interpreting the questions and giving you personalized help on that. I can go to this video here on why CEOs who don't use generative AI will fall behind, and I can say, give me a practice question so I can practice to see if I really understand this lecture, and it will give me personalized questions to understand it. At the beginning of the course, if I want to, I can say, should I take this course? So is this course relevant?
Accessing knowledge. Technology and AI will play a critical role in making the world's knowledge more equally accessible. We are excited to announce that we have translated thousands of courses into Hindi. Today we are translating written words, but soon the language barrier may disappear altogether. Soon, the best instructors in the world will be able to speak the languages of everyone in the world. Here's a glimpse of what this might look like. भारत जैसे देश में जहां सरकार ने 2035 तक 50% का महत्वाकांक्षी सकल नामांकन अनुपात लक्ष्य निर्धारित किया है, ऑनलाइन शिक्षण सुविधा, कॉलेज परिसरों में क्षमता की कमी को हल करने, कौशल की कमी को पूरा करने और एक युवा और जीवंत कार्यबल की आकांक्षाओं को पूरा करने की पूंजी होगी. Our mission is to make the world's greatest teachers accessible to learners, not only in India, but everywhere around the world. Because learning is the source of human progress. इसमें हमारी दुनिया को बीमारी से स्वास्थ्य में, गरीबी से समृद्धि में, संघर्ष से शांति में बदलने की शक्ति है. நமக்காகவும் நம் குடும்பங்களுக்காகவும் நம் சமூகங்களுக்காகவும் நம் வாழ்க்கையை மாற்றும் சக்தி அதற்கு உண்டு. इससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि हम कौन हैं या कहां हैं, सीखना हमें जो संभव है उसे बदलने, बढ़ने और फिर से परिभाषित करने की शक्ति देता है. इसलिए सर्वोत्तम शिक्षा का पहुंच एक अधिकार है, न कि विशेषाधिकार. और इसीलिए कौरसेरा यहाँ है. உலகின் ஒவ்வொரு மூலையிலும் சிறந்த கற்றலை கொண்டு வர சிறந்த நிறுவனங்களுடன் நாங்கள் கூட்டு சேர்ந்துள்ளோம், ताकि किसी को भी कहीं भी सीखने के माध्यम से अपने जीवन को बदलने की शक्ति मिल सके. थैंक यू.
Instructor speaking and moving like that, but this is in the range of possibility in the next 12 months for every course on Coursera. And when I launched my course on Tuesday, it launched in 20 languages. For all of our customers who want to serve a global workforce, maybe some speak one language, some speak another, but they want a consistent, high quality across their entire global workforce, put it on Coursera. It'll be available in almost every language. Okay, another, I think, 100 days, these 5 courses, some of the most popular courses at Coursera, will be available for free to your readers, if you're interested. All right, I already talked a bit about Coach in that demo, but basically this is personalized learning where the content comes from the expert, but it can be totally personalized based on the individual questions that the individual person is asking for. It could be for tutoring, it could be for career advice, it could be for finding new content. We've already done that. I want to talk a little bit about the educators. So Coursera is a place where people can come to get access to the best education from universities, and now increasingly we have industry partners creating content on Coursera as well. And our job is to help all of these educators collaborate on Coursera to serve learners. I'm really excited to say that we've been growing the number of Indian university partners on Coursera. We're now at 18. I'm excited today to announce that IIT Hyderabad is a new university partner. That means they're going to be authoring courses on Coursera. And these courses are available to everyone in the world. We're also working with 8 industry partners in India, and they are creating also courses on Coursera that are made available to all learners around the world. We're happy to announce a few new courses today. One from IMA, Advanced Digital Transformation, is a 3-course specialization. And Ahmedabad, the content does extremely well in India. It's like the business content coming out of our partners at IMA is doing very well. And then a Master's of Science in Information Technology. It's a college degree. It's a master's degree from IIT Hyderabad. Now, a major part of why these Indian universities want to work with Coursera is not just to make learning more accessible to folks in India, and not just learning, but also college degrees, but also to make sure that this education is available to people outside of the country. You can see in the BITS Pilani Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science honors, 60% of the students in that online degree are outside the metro area, 60% are outside the top 6 metros. They come from 282 different cities in the country, and there's twice the representation of women in this computer science degree online as on campus. And when you look at the BSc honors in data science from IIT Guwahati, 78% are outside the metros, 277 cities, 40% more women in the online program than in the on-campus. And then when you look at some of the courses that IMA has put out, they have also seen very dramatic enrollments, 200,000 course enrollments in just 7 months. Again, reaching people all around the world and increasingly older populations than who traditionally show up on campus in Ahmedabad. A major part of this too is that these Indian education partners of ours are now reaching global audiences. So the Indian content, or the content on Coursera created by our Indian education partners, has reached 1.1 million learners outside of India, 1.4 million enrollments and learners in 190 countries. So a major government policy in India is not only to upskill Indian learners, but to take the crown jewels of India, these preeminent educational institutions, and make that knowledge and expertise available globally. And Coursera has been honored to be a partner to the best universities in India to help bring India to the rest. These pathways to degrees, and I want to just spend a couple of moments talking about degree pathways. We've been working with industry to create these job training programs. We call them professional certificates. And what they do is they train somebody with no college degree or background in the field to be job ready in a certain high-demand digital job in software, IT, data, and business. These professional certificate programs are typically 50 to 100 hours. They take about 6 months. They come from the best industry partners in the world. They're taught by people who have those jobs at those companies. And what we're doing is we're working with the American Council on Education in the US and ECTS in Europe to get credit recommendations so that these professional certificates from industry count as credit towards college degrees. So now a student can start with an industry certificate and actually use that to get credit towards a college degree. We're very excited about these pathways, and I just want to say, the new education policy here in India is one of the most visionary education policies anywhere in the world. And one element of that we're very excited about is that it lays out the groundwork for the National Skills Qualification Framework. This is very similar to ECTS in Europe, that basically says, here is the framework of quality so that industry content can be made available in higher education in India. They've worked with NASSCOM to do the actual domain expertise to assess, does this technical content meet the NSQF framework? If it does, NASSCOM can essentially certify the content to be used in Indian higher education institutions. So we're seeing a hybrid collaboration between industry and academia, and I think it'll radically transform the job opportunities for students coming through institutions of higher education here in India. We've seen huge demand in India for these professional certificates. It's up 50% year on year in the last 12 months. And again, the learner can come and either take these professional certificates, which is open content, no admissions required, start anytime, $39 a month, or they can even take certain of the contents in the degree program from BITS Pilani, and it counts towards a degree from BITS, the BSc in Computer Science, or the new Masters of Science in Information Technology from Hyderabad. So these pathways are going to be incredibly important in vitalizing with job-relevant content the degree programs available in the country. I just want to briefly mention Course Builder. So another piece of AI, I talked about it before, but basically allowing our institutional customers to build their own custom courses using guest experts from around the world. And now I'm going to turn it over to Raghav to quickly talk a little bit about some of the institutional relationships that we have with institutions here in India. Raghav?
My name is Raghav Gupta. I'm MD of Coursera in India. I've been at Coursera for about 7 years, and I remember when I'd come to Coursera, we had about 1 million learners in the country. And as you heard earlier today, there are upwards of 22 million learners in the country. It is, very, very amazing to be able to serve the needs of higher education and students and working professionals in the country. And back in 2019, when we had launched Coursera for Campus here in Delhi, and Jeff and some of our senior leadership team was here, I remember saying that I had goosebumps because the moment was so exciting. And as I was listening to Jeff in Hindi, I got goosebumps again. So it was a little bit of amazing. And I know, Dr. CJK, you speak Tamil, and I know you were listening to the Tamil part of it and smiling as well. So really excited to be sharing what we're bringing and how this might help serve what we're all trying to do in India. I'll talk a little bit about institutions and the work that we do with companies and with campuses. It's a super important part of what we are bringing. And as you saw earlier, Coursera for Business, Coursera for Campus, and Coursera for Governments are the platforms that we have for these institutions. 7,000 institutions globally. And of these, many are in India. You'll see 140 businesses, about 1,100 campuses, and government organizations that we serve in the region. And I'll share a little bit of what we are seeing with two of these as well. And I'm also going to invite Dr. Jayakumar to share what L&T and Coursera are doing together. So let's take a look at businesses and how we're helping transform talent. And especially in the context of what we heard from Jeff about how AI is coming in, generative AI is coming in, and so on. We saw the growth in enrollments in India across all of our platforms. This is what we are seeing when a working professional who is working in a company is coming and learning as a part of an institutional program. So the company is saying, look, we will sponsor your learning so that you can continue to grow in your career, build the new skills for the future. And as you'll see, it grew very rapidly after the pandemic, during the pandemic, and we've seen that continued growth over the years. Overall, about 500,000, 5 lakh learners in companies in India who are learning on Coursera for Business, millions of enrollment, and then fairly strong growth, which is just pointing to the fact that to be able to bring the right learning to working professionals in the country is helping serve their career development needs as well. We heard from Jeff about generative AI, and very recently we've launched. It is a package where we've said, look, everyone can come and learn some of the essential skills for generative AI. So we're calling that the generative AI for everyone pillar. So you'll see courses on generative AI for everyone, introduction to generative AI, prompt engineering for ChatGPT, and so on and so forth. Then generative AI for executives, we heard about the CEO playbook course that Jeff has authored, so that's what you see there on top. How can CXOs come and learn this technology, think about their own personal productivity, but also about thinking about bringing generative AI into their companies and so on. And then what's coming shortly is specific teams. We heard about 6 job roles where generative AI is likely to have big impact: software engineering, marketing, customer operations, and so on. So focused on various teams is where that third leg of generative AI is going to come in as a part of this academy. I'm personally taking generative AI for everyone, highly recommended, learning a lot. And also taking Jeff's course right now, which is the CEO playbook, so highly recommended for folks who might be interested to check that out as well. To share a few names of some of the key companies that are partnering, that we are partnering with, and all of these are very familiar names to all of us in the country. So the Birla Group, Birlasoft, CK Birla Group, Wellspun, Airtel, Axis Bank, Bajaj Finserv, Reliance, Tata Communications, Tata Power, and so on. So very familiar names for all of us in the country. These are of course just a subset of the 140 odd countries that are providing learning opportunities to their employees. And you'll see here also L&T and some of our exec team and Dr. C.J. Kumar were talking, and Delhi Airport has been built by L&T, and we were saying, look, you've landed at the Delhi Airport which L&T built. And in that context, I'm going to invite Dr. C.J. Kumar up to share a little bit about their vision for learning and development of their employees, and what have Coursera and L&T done together so far. And then I'll come back and talk a little bit about what we're doing with campuses. Dr. Jayakumar, please join us.
Thank you, Jeff and Raghav, for inviting me here. I'm just very happy to be here. Whenever it's a program on learning and training, L&T is there. L&T is also known as a learning and training organization. We invest in people. There's a saying by our old founder, buildings may be there, machinery may be there, but without people it is nothing. We invest in people continuously. Today what's happening is, in an organization setup, a whole lot of changes is happening in the external environment. The organization has to be agile. It has to, one is the technology disruption, where even in L&T we have brought in, it's the vision of our chairman and managing director, Mr. Subramaniam. Long back, 5 to 6 years back, brought in a lot of digitalization. It is not just for the sake of bringing digitalization. We are predominantly into EPC, manufacturing, and IT services. Most of the EPC contract is based on L1 tender. So it is the lowest person gets the job. So we need to reduce cost, improve productivity, bring in efficiency. So continuously we work on that. That's where the technology comes in. Other thing is, when the change happens, we are entering into new areas of business. Like we are into edutech, we are into supply chain finance, we are into data centers, we are into semiconductors. So all these new areas of business. So where we need to move people from one business to another business, it needs continuous skilling, reskilling, and multi-skilling of those people. That is where we tied up with Coursera. Traditionally L&T was a training institutes were there. After the COVID, vast movement towards digital learning. We have tied up in the last 5 to 6 years with Coursera. We have a competency model for leadership and behavior, and for each areas, each level, we have defined the competencies, which we curated the courses from the Coursera, and we use it. One is directly for the access to all the employees, plus even for the leadership training, we use it as a pre-read as well as the post-read for reinforcement of this. And this is one area which we have done into. Another thing is the whole lot of certifications available with Courseras, where I find many of our employees complete a course and post it in social media telling that I have done this course with Michigan, I have done it with IIM. So that in fact creates a lot of motivation for others also to do that. And whenever we moved into, we have also formed certain academies. Academies is curated courses. For example, finance. We are predominantly engineers. 95% of the people are engineers. I heard many of my seniors telling, you are all good engineers, but you should be a good businessman also. You need finance. You should know working capital. You should know cash flows. You should know the cost, the productivity. So we have curated those universities for the academies for different levels that people go through that and develop that. In fact, we started very recently the ESG Academy, and I think we are the first to start a GenAI Academy in LLT. It's not just because everybody is going to ChatGPT. In fact, we are using generative AI in many of our operations. Some of the use cases are, for example, in terms of due to mechanization, we have used RFIDs and sensors with all of the machineries, construction equipments across the company at different locations, and data comes to our headquarters for analytics. There we use generative AI to find out which are the machineries working effectively, which is cost effective, which gives more productivity. That helps to decide on what type of procurement you have to do. So it is not only predictive, it has moved to a prescriptive model. We have our own cognitive platform where we use LLM, large language monitoring models, and which is used for particular IC specific things so that it is customized to our operations. When the business is doing that, we have to upskill our people. That's where our academy comes into handy, and people are very excited. We are in fact thinking of going for something like a quality academy, safety in different areas of this. And this is going to be the game changer, as Jeff rightly said, with the new education policy with multiple entry and multiple exit. And I think it will be moving towards skill, rather than a particular degree. If I can do this particular operations, definitely my market value goes up. That's where the employability goes up. And I think we are in the right direction, and the economy is booming, and I think Coursera will be a great advantage. Digital learning as such will be a great advantage for the industry and the people. Thank you, Raghav and Jeff, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
In Tamil or Hindi, whatever that might be, I think it's an exciting future. Okay, let me talk a little bit about some of the work that we're doing with campuses. Now, all of us know, we're all very, very, as a part of our culture, education is so important, right? It's a large country, lots of students in higher education. You might know this, there are 1,000 universities, 56,000 colleges. And, industry is changing very quickly, universities and colleges need to keep up, and that's where Coursera for Campus comes in. How do we bring the latest and the greatest, highest quality to campuses? As I shared with you about businesses, we've seen similar, increased learning happening on Coursera from students coming from campuses and learning from Coursera. What you'll see, of course, is between 2019, which is when Coursera for Campus launched, and when the pandemic came in, we saw massive increase in the number of folks learning on Coursera for Campus, and then that growth has continued. About 900,000 students in India, about 9 lakh students come and take lots of enrollments, and this has continued to grow, as you saw on the chart. And then to share a little bit of some of the names of campuses that are using the Coursera platform to drive some of the improvements in academics, to bring employability skills to the students. And this is north to south a little bit, so UPS and Graphicera in Dehradun, NMIMS and Symbiosis in Mumbai and Pune in the west, and then going all the way down to Manipal, which actually was the first university in the world to adopt a platform like Coursera for their students back in 2016, and then KGISL and so on. So it's a mix of very known large industry universities, also very ambitious smaller campuses who are looking to say, look, along with what our faculty are teaching our students, let's also bring the world's top universities, the world's best companies to teach our students. And as we heard earlier, the national education policy which came out in 2020, and then the national credit framework which came out in April 2023, allows campuses to say to their students, learn from our faculty, but also let's complement it, supplement it with online education up to 40% of credit. So the policy framework is allowing us to go and serve a lot of these campuses and bring a lot of high quality education to these students. This is Somaya University in Mumbai. It became a university about 2 or 3 years ago. But the Somaya group has been in education for the last 50 years. They've had many colleges in the city and very familiar for all of us. And we're working with them across 2 schools, the engineering school and the business school. And what you'll see here is that the theme is, look, let's provide the opportunity to modernize curricula. Let's make Coursera available as a part of their for-credit learning. And also to provide professional certificates. So as students think about exciting jobs of the future, we can equip them with the right skills and with the right credentials as well. And you'll see some of the top courses reflect this objective that we have. So content from Google, Foundations of Project Management, or as an example, Programming for Everybody in Python. So these are some of the examples of how this is translating into actual action on the campus. I think that's what we have in terms of prepared remarks. I think I'm going to invite Arnav and Jeff back up, and Arnav will open it up to a discussion and to questions. But thank you so much for listening, and hopefully,
Tamil. But India has 22 languages. So is there any plan to have more such initiatives where we can have the languages in multiple other Indian languages?
Yes. Today we are announcing Hindi, one day after National Hindi Day, which I think is just so perfect. You saw in the video, I was also speaking Tamil. I mean, I really wish I could speak all these languages. But this is what's happening. The technology, the underlying framework of large language models, together with existing statistical prediction models for machine translation, have really improved. So as the underlying models get better, what it comes down to is what data can you feed it, what language combinations can you feed it, so that it can predict, from one language to the other, do the translation. As countries and companies feed in more language combinations, these models become better and better at creating translations between more and more language pairs. We are definitely going to be translating into far more Indian dialects than just Hindi. And the government is actually working on a national language translation capability. When we put together our architecture at Coursera, we don't actually do the translations. We know that there are expert companies and also government entities that are going to be building far more capable translation capabilities than we have. So what we do is we build all the data pipelines to route our course content and our website content to whichever model is the best at translating from language A to language B. We can do that increasingly quickly and increasingly with increasing efficiency. I will tell you on the course that I shared, I uploaded my last video. I was like a student preparing for final exam. I uploaded my last video on Sunday in English. By Tuesday, the entire course was translated into 20 languages. I would predict that this time next year, it will probably be twice as many languages, including many more, to serve the Indian population.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
One of the things that's really important about working with institutions is that not only do we work with the educator partners who build courses for the entire rest of the world, and most of those courses are in English and we translate them into the other languages, but with both businesses and especially campuses, we have something called private authoring. This means that any institution that uses Coursera can not only have access to the international experts, but experts in their own institution, in their own business, if you're L&T, or if you're in your own university, if you're NMIMS, any instructor at that institution can author in whatever language they want for free a course that all of their students or employees can use. And we call that private authoring. What's also really nice is that the private authoring can be mixed using Course Builder with international experts. So now you can have experts from L&T teaching the course alongside experts in Europe or the US or IIM Ahmedabad. You can mix together expertise. So yes, we do support today the ability of our institutional customers to author in any language they want for free and offer it to their own institutional members for free. Yes.
Translators, essentially.
Oh, for sure. So certain jobs are going to be more impacted than other jobs. Clearly, when you have a service that would cost $10,000, and it usually took us about 3 months to translate one course, And now we can do it for $20 in 24 hours. It's clearly going to impact jobs. Live translation, I think, I use live translators a lot, and they're really valuable because they're real time, they understand the nuance, and you have a 100% guarantee of accuracy. So I think that live translations for high stakes environments, absolutely. Excellent translators will be really important. For at least a while, and we do this at Coursera, translators will be involved in a human in the loop. The machines will translate the first draft, and then the experts will go and make sure that it's correct, and if there are issues, then they can correct those. But for sure, the way that translators work will change. And I would say that as with many jobs, like with radiology, computers are now better at analyzing x-rays than humans. And almost every radiologist has a computer look at the x-ray before they look at it. But there are still radiologists, and they still put their expert insight into it, and they communicate with the customer, and there's a lot that happens now. So the job is changing. The automatable piece is being done by technology, but that frees up the human to do something else valuable. And I think that's going to be the big opportunity here. It's not so much just automation, but augmentation. So the technology does more of the routine work, and the humans can do things that are more valuable and unique to what humans can do. And I suspect that translators will probably more move into real-time live environments, because that's where humans will do the most valuable, the biggest value. And I don't know, Raghav or Arnab, if you want to add anything to that?
The other part is that there are complexities of language, and I think computers are doing a great job, and we are using that at scale. But in certain fields, the integrity of the translation has to be so high that translating human translator would be required.
I just want to go back to the earlier question about will we have Indian professors and faculty author content in Hindi, and can we take that to learners outside of the country as well? And I just want to point to a little bit of what we're all seeing, in terms of direction where higher education is headed. We are seeing, look, there's a clear vision from the government to say learning in your mother tongue is extremely important, whether that be at the school level or at the college level. We're also saying bringing in Indian knowledge systems into higher education is also important, so that students, learners understand a lot of that context as well. And we're increasingly seeing many of our partners, the IITs and IIMs, saying, look, many of us are looking at creating knowledge and content directly in these languages as well. A few months ago, and this is not just relevant for within the country, many of us were in Dubai, and one of the questions we were asked is, when are you translating content into Hindi, because there's so many Indians in the country, right? So it's completely relevant as a part of the mission that we have to say, how do we increasingly enable this, cross of best faculty from anywhere authoring content in any language, and also natively speaking it in Hindi or any other Indian language. So possibly on the cards for the future.
One other thing I'll mention I think is fascinating. Our Customer Operations Center, we now have agents doing learner support where the agent speaks a language and they can support real-time learners who speak 5 different languages. So the request comes in from the learner, the software immediately translated into, let's just say, English. The agent sees it in English, they answer it in English, and it goes back and retranslates it back into the language of the learner. So the opportunity to do multi-way translations. If there's a certain expert, I was in Kazakhstan the other day, and they have an expertise in lithium mining and lithium production. And they might speak, or maybe the instructor there speaks Kazakh, and the ability to translate the expert's language from wherever it originates into any distant destination language, and vice versa, I think is a huge opportunity for global sharing of knowledge and expertise. It's not just English to this. It could be any language to any language, batch mode, which is what we're doing, or real time, increasingly real time. So no, it does not guarantee you a job. And I think any institution that says that they're going to guarantee you a job, unless they're very, very selective on the front end and they only take a certain kind of person, you just can't you cannot create broad access for everybody and then promise everybody that they're going to get a job. So we don't make that promise. What we do, and this will get to the second part of your question, we bring the best experts in the world in the domains that are most valuable in the job market, with the learning experiences that are translated and have hands-on learning capabilities to help people develop skills, to help people develop relevant skills that are valuable in the job market. We also, as you're developing these skills, don't only try to help you learn the content, we help you earn credentials. So just taking YouTube content is one thing, but can you prove that you've really learned the material? The thing about credentials, whether that's a professional certificate or whether that's a BSc with honors from IIT Guwahati in data science, you have to take assessment questions to validate that you know the material. That's why the credential is valuable. So there's an assessment that was done that shows that you know the skills. I would suggest that if you learn the right skills in an environment where you can really effectively learn and demonstrate those skills, if you can pass the assessments and get a credential that is valued by employers, and then if you can showcase this to an employer, it will certainly improve the chances that you get a job. There's something I didn't show you, which is the Coursera skills profile. Every learner on Coursera gets effectively a transcript to show an employer what they've learned and what skills they've developed. It even allows them to showcase the projects that they've built on Coursera so the employer can see not only the content that you've taken, not only the skills that you've learned, not only the credentials that you've earned because you passed those assessments, but also the actual projects that you've built to demonstrate the skills that you've learned. So we don't make guarantees, but we are absolutely committed to helping people get jobs when they're on Coursera.
My question is, are the number of jobs that AI is going to create higher than the number of jobs that it will render obsolete?
So Pennsylvania, Goldman Sachs, lots of people are trying to answer this question. Clearly, there are some job categories where it will destroy jobs. I mean, it will automate jobs, and you don't really want to try to build your career in those job fields. I would say customer operations, it's not going to create more jobs in customer operations than it replaces. On the other hand, software engineering, this is an interesting one, right? Everybody is recognizing, and we in our own company with our software engineers have seen that when software engineers use generative AI to help them either write code or check code or document code, they can be far more productive. And then there's a fair question, well, does that mean you're going to need fewer of them? Or does that mean we'll stay the same, or you maybe need more of them? McKinsey just published a study where they look at, and it's in my course, if you want to, I go through this whole thing, but I'll summarize it right now. They look at all the job categories, and they look at a few different dimensions. They say, number one, to what degree will generative AI impact this job category? You have something like customer operations, very high. Software engineering, very high. But then number two, they say, to what degree will that impact the labor market demand for that job? Customer operations is one where adoption will be high and it will reduce the global demand for people in customer operations. However, they also say that in software engineering, adoption will also be very high, but it will increase the demand for software engineers. Their view is that the need for software engineering is so high and so valuable that especially if this resource becomes more productive, there will actually be increased demand for it. So you have to look at it job by job, but for the most part, what they say is not just software engineering, they say STEM jobs will increase in demand despite generative AI improving the productivity of people in those jobs. So we'll see how it plays out, but that's what we're betting on at Coursera. We are continuing to hire software engineers, and we are seeing them be far more productive with generative AI. And with that little chart that I showed you, even an entry-level software engineer is becoming very capable very quickly. It's a great return on investment when you hire these software engineers. They create incredible value because they're supercharged with generative AI.
Jeff, can you also talk about the criticality of
Can't imagine all of them. At first I was skeptical that prompt engineering was going to be a real career, but the more that we've used it at the company, we are hiring people who are prompt engineers, like people who understand language and understand systems technology and understand the nuances and particularities of how these LLMs work and behave. So there will be new jobs, but I think the ability to create pathways where you help people figure out if you're in a certain job today and it's not going in a positive direction, what are the jobs that are available that are also accessible? I mean, if there's a job of building large language models and you need a PhD, That's not going to be accessible to most people. It just takes too much education and too much technical knowledge. But there are jobs like project management, sales development representatives, UX design, that people believe will be in high demand and are accessible to people. So what we're doing is we're continuing to build out those professional certificates to help people not only see what jobs are available, but give them that learning pathway and the credential to get the job. And if they want to keep going in and get a college degree, have it count towards a college degree as well.
We can take one last question.
Hi, this is Manoj. Actually, you can only survive if you adapt. You have the adaptability up to according to the job market.
No, one of the reasons that you see the 2 degrees, one from BITS in computer science, one from IIT Guwahati in data science, that's just the first degrees that we put out at the bachelor's level in India are in those 2 domains because that's where the highest demand is. But that's not where the only demand is. I would say that the future will favor people, and I think Dr. Lee said, like people who are broadly skilled, people who understand the technical piece as well as the financial piece, the business piece, the interpersonal dynamics. Broadly skilled people are going to be very valuable, who can speak across functions. There's a technical fluency that will be required, but there's also a lot about the interpersonal parts of leading and managing and being on teams. So we do see a wide range of opportunities to learn and prosper in many different domains. And I think what the future will favor are those people who are the lifelong learners, the curious people with growth mindsets dedicated to lifelong learning and a broad range of what they learn, not just a technical degree. And I often hear employers say, I would rather have a software engineer who also knows something about management or business skills than just a software engineer who doesn't even know how to work in a team or manage people. That cross-disciplinary education, which is another feature, by the way, of the new education policy. There's a huge emphasis in the new education policy on multidisciplinary learning. And it's another reason why we're excited about Coursera for Campus. There are many dedicated schools of engineering. Those students need to learn business. There are business schools, and those students need to learn data science. We cannot be in silos anymore. We cannot just be a computer scientist. We cannot just be a business person. We need to be far more well-rounded. And that means we need to bring to bear and make available a broad range of learning across many different disciplines.
So you have appreciated the new Indian education policy. Is it a take-home message that update yourself or else you lose your job?
I think so.
You have the mic, yeah, go
Universities
ahead.
and companies in 2 ways. As you saw, we partner with universities who come and create content. We partner with universities and colleges who consume that content. So they could be a partner, they could be a customer in that sense. I shared earlier, there are 1,100 campuses today that are using Coursera for Campus. But there are 1,000 universities in the country, there are 56,000 colleges in the country. 900,000 students are learning on Coursera for Campus, but there are 40 million students, 4 crore students in India who are learning on Coursera for Campus. We want to be able to serve all of them. So we want to be able to work with 1,000 universities, 56,000 colleges, and be a part of the lives of 40 million students.
How did you come to know about Coursera 7 years ago, and how was the journey started?
You mean for me personally? My personal journey is very similar to what a lot of people in India go through. I went and started engineering, and then I eventually did an MBA. It's a little like the 3 Idiots movie. My engineering experience was not so great in terms of the quality of education, and my MBA experience was amazing. It was orbit changing. And then in 2016 or 2015, Coursera had a front page ad in the Times of India saying, you can learn from Stanford and Yale and Princeton. And I said, well, if this is possible now, then I want to make this available to many other people because I saw what education did for me personally. And so I applied for the role of the country head back in 2016, 2017, and I was fortunate they hired me. We were 5 people in India at that point in time. Today we are 250 people serving 22 million people in the country. So to me, it's been a little bit of a personal story that's helping me do what I do at Coursera.
There's some great questions coming, so we'll make an exception for time and we'll take 1 or 2 more if you have. Yes.
when I think about the digital divide, not just in India, but in many countries, whether it's in Colombia or whether it's in Poland or whether it's in Vietnam, I mean, I go all around the world. And I would say that there's a fundamental layer that needs to be in place before we can do our jobs at Coursera. And the fundamental layer, number one, is K through 12 education. If there is not strong fundamental primary education where young people learn how to speak and read and write and mathematics, it's the basics. They cannot become a data scientist if they don't know how to add numbers. You know, you cannot become a prompt engineer if you cannot really have fluency in language and written language. So I think the biggest investment countries should be making is in the K through 12 education. The second thing is connectivity. Increasingly, both the learning opportunities and the job opportunities will require connectivity, broadband connectivity. And companies like us can't do that. I mean, maybe SpaceX can do it or other satellite companies can do it, but it's going to be governments that lay fiber and put up Wi-Fi stations and help connect. But once you have strong primary and once you have good connectivity, we can do our job. And to me, what that means is make sure that you have a broad range of content that is accessible in many ways. Accessible by language, we're working on that with AI. Accessible in terms of financially, so it's not too expensive. We do that through institutions and financial aid. Make sure that it's accessible even if you don't have continuous power and continuous access to the internet. So we do that or you don't have the device. Do that on mobile, do that offline. I think if you have language accessibility, you have connectivity, at least intermittent, and you have affordability, and you can learn on almost any device, then you're really helping to bridge the digital divide. One more thing I'll just say about AI, because I don't hear people saying it very much. During COVID, and people went to Zoom, it really moved the digital divide open. Here's why. Synchronous high bandwidth video conferencing requires continuous bandwidth. It requires large amounts of data. It requires a device with a webcam. That's very, very expensive. Large language models are not the same. Large language models, because it's language with ASCII characters, with just a few bytes, you could submit a prompt to a server, and it can compute on a model that was trained for billions of dollars. It will compute an answer. It will send ASCII characters back using bytes of data and give you a very valuable answer. On any device that accepts text can take advantage of large language models. So I think there's something different about generative AI. I think it's far more accessible than high bandwidth video conferencing. And I think that's going to really help. Language translation, very accessible. Large language models, very accessible. Even things like DALL-E 3 and the vision stuff, very accessible. So I think it's going to bridge the digital divide if we have those two pieces in place. Education for K through 12 and good connectivity.
This is the real last question.
You spoke about the new education policy. What are Coursera's plans apart from the language when it comes to supporting the new education policy? Are there any other plans in pipeline? Because language is one crucial part that NEP also highlights about learning in their mother tongue, both at K-12 and in the higher education. But other than that, what are Coursera's plans about NEP?
Yeah, I'll say that what I'm most excited about, and Raghav, I definitely want to hear your thoughts, but this idea that we can build pathways from industry content and credentials into college degrees. We can help collaboration between industry and higher education. That is a breakthrough opportunity. The new education policy with the National Skills Qualification Framework, like ECTS in Europe, is laying the groundwork to validate and qualify industry content to be used in an academic setting. And NASCOM, at least on the technical piece, NASCOM is the one that's actually doing the assessment of the content to make sure it complies with the NSQF. I think that's going to be another breakthrough opportunity to dramatically advance the effectiveness of education in India. So I'm very excited about that element. Other parts, Raghav, of the NEP that you think are exciting and we're taking advantage of?
Yeah, so slightly at a broad level, right? And we saw the NEP took so long before it came out, but when it came out in 2020, right, what it says is, look, the broad vision is to enable citizens to be well-rounded citizens for society in the country. And it says that India has today about 40 million students in higher education, gross enrollment ratio is 26%. And the NEP says let's take it to 50%, which will mean that there need to be about 70-80 million students in India. So the NEP says how do you provide access, how do you provide equity, how do you provide quality to these large number of students. And the way we are approaching it is we are saying there are all these existing campuses, how do we help them continuously accelerate their academic excellence with Coursera for Campus, and how do we go and plug in there. And like I mentioned earlier, now if you're an on-campus student, 40% of your credits can come from an online platform like Coursera, so we're doing that part of the work. And then the other part is that as we see 40 million students going to 70 million students in the next 7-8 years, not all of those students are going to come from on-campus learning, because there isn't the time, the money, the space to build so many universities. And what you saw in terms of the BITS Pilani degree, the IIT Guwahati degree, is to be able to say how do we bring high quality degree from top brands with job relevance to many thousands of students in the country through the online space. So those are the two broad themes that we're working on.
One other thing I'll just mention too with that BITS Pilani, is it industry or is it higher education? Is it a micro-credential or is it a degree? It's all going hybrid. So we have a relationship with Scalar, where an entrepreneurial startup here in India, where they're taking the BITS Pilani degree with a residential program that's it's like a residential boot camp, and the curriculum is a BITS Pilani a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science. So you're seeing really interesting collaboration between industry, not only creating the content, but also in delivering the content as well.